Hello, Scott Farkus here. Welcome to my Bariatric Surgery channel for Vertical Gastric Sleeve, or VSG. This particular channel will be focused on my experience preparing for and undergoing the procedure in Tijuana, Mexico. I wasn't originally planning on having my surgery in Mexico, but after doing a lot of research and some other circumstances, things kind of ended up that way. And I know that when I was looking for resources on Mexico, they were kind of few and far between, particularly when it came to the provider that I'm using, which is BariatricPal MX. I'm using Dr. Illan. Illian is how that's spelled. I'll put his full name in the comments. But I know that there's a lot of people who want to know more about what that experience is. What is the hospital like? What's the situation like? And then I'll also go through all the same stuff that everybody else goes through about pre-op diet and things that I've learned, and then we'll just kind of go through the experience after the surgery and the recovery, and obviously the journey that leads to hopefully a better place. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am 40 years old. I weigh 300 pounds. I'm 6'2", and I have a BMI of the upper end of 38. I am not a definitive candidate for bariatric surgery. They like you to be a 40, but if you're over a 35, I'm in one of those conditions where I have sleep apnea. I have a mild PVC, heart arrhythmia, preventricular contractions. I have a family history of diabetes and heart disease and all kinds of other things that go along with some of this. Plantar fasciitis in my feet. Did I already say that? Anyway, just a few conditions, bad back, that still put me in the category of needing surgery. I'm roughly 100 pounds overweight. I have been obese since I was probably 11 years old. I was thin until I was 10, and then once puberty came around, I started packing it on. My teenage years is probably where I gained a significant amount of weight. It probably affected my self-confidence a little bit, but I probably wasn't morbidly obese at that time in my life, but I was always heavy. It's always a stocky guy. One of the things that I've struggled with, I'm not necessarily an emotional eater. When I get really upset or stressed out, I don't eat. I eat more when I'm happy. I love to eat. I have a passion for food and the artistry that goes into it. But I think my vice is that I can eat a lot. And when I say a lot, I could eat a lot. When I was a teenager, I could eat 2 12-inch pizzas if put to the challenge. In my current situation, again, 40 years old, I can go to my favorite Mexican restaurant. I can eat half of a order of nachos, like, the big ones with like everything on it, that's probably meant for a table of 4 to 6 people. I can eat half of that. And then I can eat one of those giant oval plates with like a couple massive burritos with everything on top of them. I can clean that, and then again, given the opportunity, I can also probably eat half to a whole sizable burrito full of ice cream covered in cinnamon and coconut, some good fried ice cream. That's probably more food than most people can eat times 3. I think my family in general, meaning my siblings and extended family, something to do with our Scandinavian genetics, and which, Darwin's theory probably has built them to consume mass amounts of food so that they stay warm in the winter, but it doesn't do me a lot of good when I sit in an office for 10 hours a day and exercise almost never. So here we are, and here's my situation. Again, some of the reasons I'm doing this? Why would I do bariatric surgery, and why am I looking at the VSG, the sleeve? Um, Going back to family genetics, my mother is type 2 diabetic. She's been morbidly obese since I was born. Since my siblings, my oldest is 10 years older than me, she's always been obese. My father is not morbidly obese, but he's probably a BMI of, a solid 34 or 35. My mother's had 2 knee replacements, 2 hip replacements. She has a bad shoulder. She went into a condition in her probably early 60s where she just hasn't been able to go anywhere or do anything without, canes and stroll, what do you call them? I don't know. The wheeled accessories. Not a wheelchair, but she needs that even sometimes as well. Not something I'm interested in, nor is the diabetes or anything else. I remember as a child, my mother never got out. We'd go on trips and vacations. My dad would go on hikes and things with us. Mom would stay behind. We'd go on little boating trips and things. She'd stay in the boat. Never get out, never go for a walk, never do anything because she was so big. She was embarrassed, and because she was embarrassed, she never got out. Because she never got out, she just kept getting bigger. Not interested would be my take on that. My father, despite not being morbidly obese, he's always been a big guy. He eats too much of the wrong things earlier in his life, and had a quadruple heart bypass at the age of 47. Another thing I am just not interested in. I've seen the future in my destiny, and I've decided that's not for me. So, the question might be asked, why don't you just lose weight the traditional way? It goes back to the fact that I can eat a lot of food. So I'll tell you about the last 5 years. I've done a diet starting in January every year for the last 5 years, and I have lost every year 30 to 52 pounds. 52 is my best year in the course of about 3 months. At the end of that time period, I start trying to eat. I get down to where I'm 250-ish, and I could live with that. I feel healthy at 250 and strong, but I'm starving at 250. With the amount of work it takes to stay at 250, I probably have to eat 1,500 calories to maintain, because I typically destroy my metabolism to get there. And I am just hungry. And the second I go back to eating enough food to where I'm not starving all the time, the weight comes right back, and I can put that 30 to 60 pounds on easily in less than a year. And I don't even have to try. It just comes right back. Some of you have probably seen the study called set point theory that was done on the several of the contestants of the Biggest Loser. That really hit home to me. That was in year 4 of this 5-year of losing weight and adding weight right back on. Very disheartening to read that study. At the same time, people can do whatever they want. If I really want to, I can be hungry all the time and keep that weight off, but honestly, I don't want to be hungry and starving all the time. So I had some experiences where I ran into some friends of mine that I hadn't seen in a number of years, and a couple of them had bariatric surgery. One in particular I worked with, probably 14, 15 years ago, and he had the surgery 8 years ago, and he was like 330 pounds, and now he's like, $195 or 200 pounds. He and this other friend both say exactly the same thing. Best decision I've ever made in my life. And I'm sure they don't mean their wife and kids and all that, but everybody seems to say this, and I've talked to 4 people now all together that seem to have that same sentiment, but a couple in particular that I'm pretty close to. The one thing that VSG should cure for me is my ability to just consume mass amounts of food before I'm full. I am looking for a cure for satiation. I want to be able to eat 4 to 8 ounces of food, and be full, because that is my vice, and I'm okay with that. Food has been a good friend to me, and an awful friend to me that has abused me more than it should have, and I've eaten enough for 2 lifetimes, and I can go the rest of my life just eating a little bit. I'm going to call it a day right there, just on the introductory session. So now you know a little bit about me. In the next session, I'll talk a little bit about why Mexico, and how I got to that point, and then after that, I'll start talking a little bit about the prep work. So with that, we'll see you next time. Thanks.